Welcome. What's up, Lone Wolf? First to win. Congratulations. Just going to send it out to a few people. Should change the about me, honestly. Change that real quick. Welcome in, guys. What's up, Shy? Just changing the about me real quick because it's no longer accurate. Accuracy is key. I don't know if that's it. All right. How you doing? No, Roy's gonna be. So I'm not. It's not with me. Roy's gonna be at 6 o'clock. Hit me up like on Instagram, and maybe I'll be able to email you the link, or email you, DM you the link to the live. Because I'm gonna go from 5 to 5:30, and then that's gonna be 6 o'clock here on the app. He's gonna be with a different creator and her live. So yeah, and I want to watch that shit because Dr. Roy is really dope. I'm talking about Dr. Roy Casagrande. I don't want to butcher his last name. He's a really good historian who just offers a lot of perspectives that try to get buried by the West. And I've learned a lot from him. So he's got a really good YouTube page up with a lot of his lectures there. So it's pretty cool that he's like making waves here on TikTok, or making rounds at least. So, what's up, Emetron? How you doing? Yeah, gonna go live usually twice a week, barring things like soccer and stuff. But twice a week, usually Sunday and Thursdays. And then we put the lives up on YouTube actually afterwards. So if you ever miss one, check out the YouTube page. We just got going. We're putting the lives up there. So we go live Sunday, post that live Monday on the YouTube, and then same thing Thursday to Friday, right? So, anyways, good to see you. What's up, News for Names Junior? How are you? Long time no see. But yeah, user 85. Not curious, just am. So. Miss Jessica, hey friend, how are you? Doing good, Jessica. Thank you. How are you doing? Anyways, so it's like game plans talk about the USA, kind of the nature of the United States of America. Lately, in like the past week or so, I've been having some interesting conversations with like people in my circle, friends, people on this app. And a lot of the behavior, like in miniature moments, kind of is making me I think, realize just a lot of things about just how much deconstruction as a collective we have to do when it comes to so many of the pillars within our society and what it promotes. And so I've been trying to kind of really just think a lot about this shit, talk to people a lot about this stuff, study as much as I can, look into it as much as I can, right? Like usual. And I just find myself coming to some different conclusions maybe than I had even like a year or so ago. But yeah, it's been an interesting kind of evolution or devolvement, I guess. Depends on your perspective of thought. So, let's see. But yeah, doing good, Jessica. How about yourself? Yeah, I don't know. No use. I'm not really sure myself. Anyways, guys, do me a favor. Like the live if you can. Share the live out to some people, right? We're only going for 30 minutes tonight. So if you can drag some people in who you think might be interested to talk about why the USA has always been fascist. That's the talk tonight, right? So right now, there's been a lot of conversations about electoralism. First and foremost, I want to make it really clear that any conversation, if someone is, in my opinion, if they're turning almost anything into a binary, that's usually pretty sketch already, in my opinion, right? So like, for example, if the conversation is electoralism versus direct action, already fucked up, right? The real question is, how can electoralism help us or not help us? And how can direct action help us or not help us, right? These are two things. We have to apply it. Right, and if we live beneath a fascist regime, which I think most people in this live would probably agree upon, right? Hey, do me a favor, guys. Can we get rid of user 857? Just a completely disingenuous human being. So anyways, so where are we at? So United States of America, fascism, right? And so first of all, if someone contends or doesn't like the use of the word fascism within this live, I would suggest they go look at the 14 points of fascism, something to that effect, a definition, bring it back to me, throw it at me. I'd be more than happy to engage that definition. But until then, I'm going to utilize fascism in a way that I think makes sense. I'll put it into context with things, and if people disagree, let me know. So, most people right now looking at Donald Trump and his regime, right, they would say, this looks like fucking fascism, right? Now, I would say this looks like really over, loud, proud, malicious, obvious fascism. Keyword, obvious fascism, right? Because when we look at the regime, right, when we look at Donald Trump, when we look at what they claim to represent, when we look at their very fucking cry, right, what is their cry? What's the very first thing that they fucking rally around and let everybody know, right? What's their vision statement? What's their mission statement all combined into one? What's their fucking value statement all combined into one? MAGA, make America great again. They are very fucking clear about what they are. right? They hold a very corrupted, first of all, this tradition of ours is already corrupted, right? But they hold an even more corrupt, like, version of this, like, shit than, like, even possible somehow, right? Because remember, make America great again. And I'm going to keep hammering the same shit. Liberals, progressives, Democrats, centrists, people who reject MAGA. What do you ask them? Make America great again. You demand that question of them, right? You demand an answer of them. What would be an acceptable answer to you? What's the accurate answer to you? Because in my opinion, right, it seems like most of us, in that gotcha moment, make America great again. When was it great? Never. Never. What time period would you point to that would say that America has been great? Right? So when we really sit on that, when we really sit on the fact that the United States of America was founded upon genocide, 100 million people on this continent plus killed. Transatlantic chattel slavery. Tens of millions of people kidnapped, tortured, brutalized, dehumanized in every way possible. Another genocide to build this shit. So the United States of America was founded upon and built by genocide. And the really important question we have to ask ourselves is, when did that genocide end? And if we're honest with ourselves, we're going to have to recognize that it never ended. It never ended. That's what we're going to have to recognize. So, let me get a couple of comments real quick here. Great for who exactly, Anthony? For some, a selective few, right? Our history is full of, absolutely, it's in our DNA. Well, you know what's interesting? So Anthony, or George, pardon me, Jordan, you mentioned our history is full of killing. I don't know if that is in reference to like the United States of America, or if that's meant to like minimize and say it's all okay. But if you think about like the kind of like the various different like hominids and whatnot, and like, you know, like different like species of Homo, right, or Homo sapiens, there have been like 14 to 20 different like human-like species, right? And interestingly enough, there's an argument to be made that we're probably arguably maybe the most violent version of them all, right? Some of them intersected. We overlapped in time periods like the Neanderthals. And so like the even Homo erectus, I believe. I hope I didn't get that one wrong, but I believe Homo erectus, right, from like 1.9 million years ago to about almost 100,000 years ago, right? But that intersects with Homo sapiens for almost 200,000 years, right? There's probably your uncanny valley, by the way. But if we survive, there's an argument to be made that we might be the most violent. In some ways, maybe, possibly, right? But certainly right now, when you look at the United States of America and just how much harm we have inflicted upon the globe, there's an argument to be made that we probably have a death count of over 300 million bodies when you look at what established this shit and what it's cost to maintain this shit through the moment, right? When you think about the staggering death toll and just how easy it is for us to actually inflict harm upon the globe, right, with our technology and shit, there's an argument to be made that we're the most violent fucking culture of the most violent fucking species to ever like exist within whatever the fuck we call life here. And that's like, should be like a mind-blowingly just like devastating thing to consider, right? Is that like really what you'd want to be known for? So United States of America, founded upon genocide. When did that genocide end? And if we have a fucking heart and a mind and we look at the history of this shit, I think we realize that it hasn't ended, right? We're absolutely most brutal and dangerous. And I don't think, here's the thing though, I don't think it has to be that way, right? So when we talk about human history or human nature, I think there's this idea that like humans are inherently greedy, right? Or we're inherently selfish or like inherently violent. And I disagree with this idea of like something that's inherent and fixed within us, right? I think if anything, we know that human nature is really fucking fluid, right? I would say there's 3 facts to human nature. 1, it's really fluid. 2, it's communication. And 3, we're a hyper-collective species, right? These are kind of the 3 facts of human nature. I think once you go away from that, you're looking at some really interesting projections, right? From maybe the individual or the society in which they live within, right? Maybe a combination of the two. So going on to this first fact, right? Human nature is really fluid. Well, I think this is really easy to prove. Just look at all of us in this room right here having a conversation, right? We all have a variety of perspectives, things that we kind of like, don't like, align with, right? So, and we can change over time, right? We get new information, and some things we kind of hold true and kind of stay to for the most part, and some things we kind of adjust and grow from, right? And so that kind of shows a fluidity, right, in the interpersonal level. And then if we look at things at the group level, right, so for example, different countries right now have different ways of doing things, different laws, different cultures, different foods, different things like that. So that would suggest, you know, a variety, right? And then you look at kind of time, right, history, and cultures have done things at different times, different points, right, in different ways, and it can change, it can evolve, it can collapse, and everything in between, right? And so we see quite clearly that there is a fluid nature to what a human and humanity kind of looks like, right? It just depends on what? Your communication, right? So this second factor of human nature, right? Our communication. So much of what our human nature is going to look like, right, is dependent upon how we fucking talk, man. How do we talk to each other? What do we value, right? Do we want to talk in one of two ways? And this is like one of the few binaries I think that really does exist. Well, at least like in a general sense. We can talk in a positive way. We can talk in a negative way, right? If we're talking in a positive way, that's supportive, right? It's constructive, right? It's genuine. We're really trying to reach mutual understanding, right? We're not trying to win the moment. We're not trying to attack the person. We're really trying to hear them out and share our shit back and forth and reach this shared truth so we can move forward in alignment, right? In a more ethical and even strategic way, right? Okay, so we'll kind of pin that thought, right? We can do positive communication, supportive, or we can choose negative communication, right? Negative communication is going to look very destructive, right? I don't think we have to go much beyond that. It's people that aren't trying to talk to understand one another, not trying to share information. They're trying to win the moment. And what we have to understand is that all we have to probably reach true understanding is our words. So the second someone would utilize that in a non-positive manner towards the negative, it's very clear they're no longer interested in collective understanding, right? Which is that third fact of human nature, right? We're a hyper-collective species, right? And so they're no longer interested in utilizing communication to build our nature in a positive or supportive way. They want to do things in a negative way, which is what I would argue individualism begins to look like, right? This move away from shared truth and towards the elevation of personal truth is the foundation of individualism, right? So we have these conversations about capitalism, right? About colonialism, feudalism, imperialism, right? This coming to be neo-feudal corporatism. But even once you get away from all of that, have you deconstruct the individualism at the heart of all this shit, right? And that's what racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, elitism, ableism, right? All these different forms of isms are meant to facilitate individualism, right? That's why the intersectionality and the understanding of all these different things is so fucking important. And it's something I'm working on every day. So I'm not really trying to preach at people. It's just more of trying to share shit that I'm going through every day, trying to deconstruct living in this fucking country, right? Living in the heart of the motherfucking empire, living in the heart of the most destructive thing I think going on in the world right now. So, sorry, quick pause. Appreciate the likes, by the way, guys. Appreciate you guys being here. Sorry, I go kind of rant mode sometimes. I'll try and catch up to the comments there. So, hey, what's up? Is it Brandon? What's up, Brandon? How you doing, man? Good news, going live Sunday and Thursdays, man. Usually, unless I have soccer on Sundays. Sometimes I got to go to soccer. I need my me time too, you know. But thanks, Newfoundland. I appreciate that. What's up? Is it Easy? I was born into a conservative family. So interesting, man. So I want to kind of bounce off that conversation or that kind of point there because I've found something really similar, man. So growing up, my dad has always been, so my dad's from Iran. He has always been against the Shah, against the regime, against imperialism, right? And he has always been a secular, socialist Muslim, right? That's his stance, always has been as long as I remember. Then there's my mom's side of the family, all born in America. We got some hillbillies from West Virginia. We got some rednecks down in Southern California, right? A bunch of conservatives, and I would say kind of more of a secular conservatism. So the one benefit I had was from neither of my parents was like they're like religion, right? We really were free to kind of explore that shit for ourselves. But I really heard a lot of my mom's side of the family, especially post 9/11, right? This country really ramped up the Islamophobia, right? Really ramped up the anti-Middle East propaganda. And it really made me kind of not like my Persian side, right? You have my American side, my Persian side, and it really kind of didn't make me like my Persian side. So I tap into this secular conservatism, right? You kind of start growing up a little bit. I'm just going to kind of bypass all that shit. Then you get to this divergence point, right? Things start to happen. You're like, I don't really know that this is the fucking way, right? Because luckily you got good people around you planting seeds, right? Giving you a chance. And then I landed in like radical centrism, right? I'm like, well, you know, clearly fucking Republicans have lost the plot and I lost the plot with them, right? But I still don't trust Democrats. I never fucked with Democrats because there's that original bias, right? That anti-liberal bias originally. So you end up like in this like kind of like between two position, right? And then pretty fucking quickly I realized this is fucking silly. I still don't like those guys and I really don't fucking like these guys now. So where the fuck am I, right? And now I end up in vague leftist land. And I call this vague leftist land because leftism doesn't fucking mean anything. Unless you've defined it with the people you're talking to in a really strict sense, and then it can mean something. But then I land in naive little leftist land where I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. And now I'm really, though, in a stage of deconstruction and kind of re-emerging education, right, for the first time for real skis. And in that process, I kind of land within Marxism, critical theory, right, this really, I think, amazing tool of analysis, right, to look at the social, the political, the economic kind of pillars of society. And all of a sudden, I'm like, damn, I'm a fucking Marxist of some kind, right? I like this tool of analysis. What the fuck does that mean for me in application? And then I start to think, well, I'm having a lot of conversations with syndicalists, with anarchists, with communists, with socialists, and I like a lot of the things they say. I agree with them. I can work with them a lot of the times, but I disagree on some things here and there. And some of these things seem really obvious to me when doing my own analysis of the material conditions and the origin point of the power and how it kind of deviates and facilitates itself and all this good shit, right? So I'm like, I feel like there's some really obvious shit right the fuck in front of me that I'm having really obvious disagreements with. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if these are even disagreements. I think it's just limitations and frameworks and language, maybe, right? And conceptions. Because I really am starting to really believe, and I've kind of always felt this way, but I'm really able to articulate more so than ever, that tension. So this whole idea, for example, like agree to disagree, weak, fucking intellectual cowardice. I never agree to disagree. And I mean like never. I don't agree to disagree. Because there's probably two things here. There's fact and there's perspective. How could we agree to disagree on a fact? A fact is or it isn't. So if we agree to disagree on a fact, one of us is fucking wrong objectively, right? That's a measurable, observable, evidential-based fact, right? Like someone's height. We can measure that shit, right? So someone's wrong, someone's right. Then there's something like the Beatles. I think the fucking Beatles are musical terrorists. They make my ears want to bleed. That's how I feel. Someone can say, I disagree, but you don't fucking disagree. How could you disagree with how I feel about that shit? I'm not making some fucking claim. I'm just saying that this artistic form of expression impacts me this way. That's my life, bro. Now you could say, you know what, that's interesting. That's not my experience. I fucking love them. I think that they're musical geniuses. I rock with that shit breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I can't say I disagree. I would just say, that's interesting. That doesn't align with my perspective. But we don't agree or disagree there. We're just sharing our fucking experiences. And maybe sometimes we come across an art form or something, right? A form of expression that we both enjoy on the same fucking level, to the same fucking tone. That's alignment, right? So I don't agree to disagree. I agree to, if I agree to disagree to anything, I agree to fucking explore our perceptions in a genuine way, right? And to accept facts. If I disagree with you, it's because you're a disingenuous piece of shit. That's about it. And now we're back to communication, right? And do you want to communicate in a positive way or do you want to communicate in a negative way? And if you're communicating in a positive way, we probably don't need to agree or disagree. We can work through that shit probably, right? We're trying to reach that mutual understanding. But if it's fucking negative, fuck you, man. Always. So. Also, yeah, to Shai's point right there, guys, thanks for getting the page over 10K likes. That's really cool. I appreciate you guys being here and kind of listening to me just kind of rant and rave. So thanks to the comment, Heather. Thanks, Dab. What's up? Is it Ezzy or Izai, bro? I don't want to get it wrong. So I've embraced Sufi Islam as beautiful. Nice, Goldie. Still beefing with that one dude. So it's interesting, man. As I've kind of tried to get away from the nationalism, the imperialism that just kind of infected me, I've been way more open and receptive to Islam. Especially because, like, just, my dad's own beliefs and stuff. It's been interesting talking to him, myself as an agnostic atheist right now, and him and his views. Because I find we actually do align on a lot of things. So, I don't know who Dennis Leary is, but I'll take it. Hopefully that's a good thing. I prefer transparency. Yeah, I mean, you got to have transparency. You got to have vulnerability. Like, we got to be open and honest with one another. Otherwise, you're doing this manipulative dance of some form, right? You're manipulating yourself, them, both. Just say nothing, then, I guess. So, but I do want to remind some people, hey, we do a couple things. We do lives Sunday nights, Thursday nights, just like this. You can check out the Substack. The link is in my bio. If you like to hear me talk about shit, you might like to hear me or read me write about some shit. I actually think I'm probably a better writer than speaker, to be honest, because I can take time to kind of, look at it, review it a little bit. I'm just up here spitting usually. And usually I'll share some poetry. I don't do like deep fucking long pieces. I just do kind of short little, what I would call like mini papers almost. Like, you wouldn't even call it an essay, man. Like, I do like just mini pieces. But honestly, I think that a lot of these things, you don't need a fuck ton of pages to express. I think that people really love to muddy the water with fake complexity. And not that there's not a ton of nuance and complexity in life. I totally get that, right? If the collective is the foundation, the individual is the expression, right? And there's 8 billion humans alone, let alone all the other species and beings on this planet that we don't really consider, right? And how they might express themselves in ways that we're kind of starting to understand. On that note, dude, so they just came out with a study, research that like confirms that crabs feel pain. This is like the perfect highlight of why we're so fucked up as a species, right? Kind of coming full circle back to that conversation about how we're so fucking violent and whatnot as Homo sapiens, and now here within the United States of America, and just like this culture in general that's infected much of the world, right, of capitalism. So researchers have confirmed that crabs feel pain. No fucking shit, bro. Like we've been killing them for centuries on centuries on centuries, right? And like in that point, like we didn't see any fucking like, like form of fear, any kind of reaction towards pain. Like we had to fucking keep killing them. At some point, someone had to fucking dissect that motherfucker and look at its internal system to confirm scientifically, hey, it has pain, guys. We should consider some things ethically and morally. Like, do you know how fucking sick that is? Like that we had to fucking just keep killing them and fucking split them open to figure that shit out. We couldn't just look at them and empathize with them. That's a lack of humanity, or even something fucking more than that, right? And so like, and I hate stories like, oh, it's like, what a great discovery. What a fucking horrific, awful discovery that highlights just how fucking piss poor and unintelligent we might be as a species, right? So it's like, fuck me, man. So I get kind of frustrated sometimes. I'm never really trying to yell at people. I just get fucking woo. Sometimes I yell at people if they're being douche canoes. But yeah, that's why it really all comes back to empathy, man. So I would ask this question. Do you guys think that morality has always, and I'm just going to kind of pause for a little bit. I'm going to just give it a few seconds. Do you think that morality has always existed? And if not, do you know when it might have emerged? Jay Will, yes. Thanks for the likes, by the way, Shy. Appreciate that. I don't think it's always existed. Emetron. Okay, so we got 1 and 1, 1 to 1. We got 1 yes, we got 1 no. Let's see. Let's see if we can get some data from the crowd. I think in some ways it's natural, so that kind of be a, well, natural, that we'd have to define natural. That could be either one. Yes, no, kind of maybe so. All right, so lots of takes, right? Morality is subjective based on culture at the time, but the only absolute moral is life. Yeah, morality. You know what's interesting? I'm trying to work on an objective proof of morality, but I agree, famous actor. I mean, for the sake of this conversation, to be genuine, yeah, morality, for better or worse, appears to be subjective, right? But if morality is an emergence point, wouldn't that be an objective event that we could analyze that might tell us more about the nature of morality, right? So maybe we just don't know enough about the origin point of morality if it did emerge at some point. But again, if there's this emergence point, right, where like we see empathy for the first time in a living organism, right, we could analyze what that actually is, right? And if we could analyze what that actually is, we could actually describe it in an objective sense. Then we could really make hard claims in ways we might not have been before. Yeah, that's the idea I've been playing with. When did morality emerge, if it did at all? Has it always been around? And if it hasn't always been around, how did it emerge? Why did it emerge? And how did it sustain? So perhaps through mystical experience and realizing non-duality. Famous, you're kind of I feel bad, you're at a disadvantage in the comment section. Justin, what are my thoughts on, because you're bringing in some good stuff that like I'd have to think on. Justin, what are your thoughts on religion impacting morality? So I think let's just apply it to what we can see right now, right? I live in the United States of America in a society that claims to be secular, but I've been kind of playing with this idea that secularism is a myth, because that would imply that we can really separate religion from our institutions, even if we try to do it by name. But can human beings really do that, right? If you live in the United States of America and the majority of your Congress, the majority of your politicians are Christians, right, or some branch of Christianity, well, what do they make like their decision? What's their decision-making function come from? It is definitely like their ethics, their morals, their strategy, all this shit. It comes from a religious source. So I think that it's like kind of obvious that like religion impacts morality. Like religion tries to frame and define morality and what that should look like. So the impact is like inherent, you know. That's why I think some religions get it way better than others, and what their version of morality looks like and applied action looks a lot different, right? So like something I was talking about with a friend is, imagine if so like before Christianity hits the Roman Empire, right? The Roman Empire is still militaristic, right? Super expansionary, and is trying to fucking find new markets, right? That sounds fucking familiar. And then what happens? Hey, look, Christianity, this decentralized religion that people are arguing about, just boom, intersects, and we got good old Constantine, and all of a sudden you have this state mechanism that was already militaristic and expanding and looking for markets, now wrapped up in Christianity. That seems fucking healthy, right? And then you have the collapsing of this shit, right? But it serves as a foundation to what? Oh, feudalism. All these fucking kings that think they're fucking divinely wrapped, just like Constantine, just like the Roman Empire. We're the inheritors. We're the true divine king, right? This is fucking legit. Not them. Fight for me. So feudalism, as they acquire more and more resources, as they start to expand more and more, shapes into colonialism, right? Which then evolves into imperialism, right? Okay, no more boots on the ground. We have established land. We're gonna fucking utilize more sophisticated mechanisms to control you, and we're gonna call it imperialism, plausible deniability for the goobers, right? Yay. And then that markets itself eventually into capitalism, this great, competitive, innovative fucking system that makes life better for you and me. Woo! Right? Trickle down. Yay. Rugged individualism. Yay. Right? And then what comes along? Liberalism to protect this system. Woo! We believe in the markets. We believe in private property. We believe in equality within capitalism, this economic freedom, right? Well, that's pretty fucking silly, because then all of a sudden, what always emerges out of that shit when it starts to really fucking have problems? Oh, fascism, which was arguably always fucking there, right? That's why just when shit really gets obvious, it rears its ugly ass fucking head to try to fucking consolidate and keep this shit in line. Because it was always fascist. It just has to drop the mask and show you what the fuck's really going on if you get out of line, right? So, I don't know where the fuck I was going with that. Yeah, whatever. Thanks, Goldie. I appreciate that. Actions speak louder than words. What have they shown us thus far? Where was I going with that? Was there a comment that kind of got that going? So yeah, religion. So yeah, man, Christianity's always been the fucking driving religion of this shit. I used to be like all religion bad, and then I looked at even how does Judaism treat Christianity? How does Christianity treat Judaism? How does Christianity treat Islam? How does Islam treat Christianity? Muslims, they have a lot of respect for Jesus. Last I checked, Christians oftentimes have zero fucking respect for Muhammad. So even something like that, how do you treat the key pillars or the key figures within a religion is going to dictate your tone and attitude towards that religion. And there's a reason why the Islamic Golden Age had a lot of the fucking things way before the Enlightenment and like Europe kind of figuring shit out, right? That they claim to have invented. It's really ahistorical. A lot of cultures that are just predicated upon whiteness, which is cancel culture, right? The stripping of others and then renaming as itself, which is what Christianity has always been, right? The ultimate fucking cancel culture project. We're at a point where, yeah, man, just pin it there. I wouldn't say nothing good comes from religion, good vibes, because again, good things came from Islam. Like scientific and like philosophical like evolution happened within the confines of early Islam. Bad things did too, but that's just an absolute claim that I would reject. I'd be really careful of making absolute claims. Religion itself is fine, Easy says, but some use it to strip others, right? Exactly, man. It like even, okay, take even the word hierarchy, right? Hierarchy sounds pretty fucking bad, especially within the lens of capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, right? All those things we were talking about early, right? Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, classism, elitism, right? That facilitate this shit, right? That facilitate these hierarchies. Is the issue hierarchy itself, or is the issue the values, the fucking corrupted values that allow it to facilitate power? And so I'm not so much against hierarchy as I am against fucked up, disgusting values embedded into hierarchy, right? Because a really good example of a creator on this app uses this example. I need surgery, right? I got to get a really important surgery done. They wheel me into the emergency room, right? They get me prepped. I'm in the surgery room now officially, right? And there's people in that room, right? There's support staff, right? There's nurses. There's a surgeon, right? There's me. Is there a hierarchy within there? Is there someone who ultimately is going to make like the final decision, kind of have to act in a way that kind of dictates what's going on and kind of directs some people? Because I would argue that like by definition there is. And so what's really more important than the existence of that hierarchy is what are the values that dictates what that hierarchy looks like? And is it suited to the moment as opposed to being this rigid structure meant to like maintain power, right? But in that moment, that power makes sense. But then when we give him that power, he shouldn't then go to like the mechanic or the garage and then also be making decisions in that room, right? He should probably be the one sitting and waiting for his car to get fixed then, right? And so power has to suit the moment. It can't be a fixed thing. And if we realize that as we analyze things in isolation, we have to put them back together, well, the past, the present, the moment, we're analyzing time, but we have to put it back together. So even like these conceptions are like limited, if that kind of makes sense, right? So it's all one, bro. Yeah. Okay, well, on that note, I think we've hit our point for the night. I'm sorry, guys, because I really enjoyed this. It's been a good, really back and forth. I'm going to hit a few of these comments, and I'm probably going to get out of here. But check the Substack. Substack's the link in the bio. I'm here Sunday and Thursdays. Usually go 30 minutes a night for now. Might expand in a little bit because I'm kind of enjoying this, getting back into the flow. Really appreciate everyone who's here, asking great questions, giving good feedback in the comments. But again, I'm here Sundays. I'm here Thursdays. Sundays, almost always, unless I have a soccer game in the evenings. Sorry, soccer is life. Football is life. Um, and if that happens, I'll try and like do another live at some point, maybe to make up for it. But yeah, and then if you miss the lives, no big deal. Check out the YouTube page. We post them on Monday and Friday and the aftermath, so you can check it out there. If you enjoyed this live, maybe share the YouTube with someone, right? If you think they could benefit from it, hell, maybe bring them to the next live. But again, really check out the Substack. I think there's some good shit there. I appreciate you guys being here. Have a great night, and maybe see some of you guys at the Dr. Roy Casagrande live. How do I exit out of this? All right. Still here, hanging out. Not at all awkward. Extra time. That button?